Hey y'all, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Sports. I'm your host Taya and I'm so excited to have you guys here with us today. Do we have a fun episode for you? Let's start with a little bit of a recap of the US Open. What a fun tournament this was. The largest stadium that tennis really has on a large scale, the last major of the year, and it didn't disappoint. On the women's side, we had quite the quarterfinals with Naomi Osaka going up against Coco Gauff, and something that everybody had wanted to see for so long. And when the groups originally had been placed, I think it was something that everybody really was hoping to happen. Coco got out of that last round of 16, and we were so excited to see her go up against Naomi. The little boo-boo trend took full effect as Naomi Osaka entered the court with Billie Bling King, and so many fun others. Naomi ended up winning that round and heading into the semifinals against no other than Anna Anisimova. Anna Anisimova had a really fun journey to get to this point. I would say fun's a loose word. She had a horrendous loss in the Wimbledon match tournament just a couple months ago. She lost 6-love in the final to Iga. Now, this quarterfinal was a rematch of that final. And Anna, well, she took it home. She was playing in the US, she had the crowd behind her, and you could tell she was playing with more confidence, more sure of herself, and we were all so excited to see her go into the semifinals against Naomi. Now, if you've never seen a round of tennis, that semifinal between Naomi Osaka and Anna Anisimova is one of the most entertaining matches that I've seen. If you want to go back, you can rewatch it on the Tennis Channel or ESPN. At the end of that round, an intense round where you could really see Naomi getting into her head. And one thing that I said all tournament long, and I'll say it again, is that tennis really is kind of like a game of chess, physical chess, and that you're trying to move your opponent on one side of the court just to slice him on the other end. You could see this mental focus taking turns between Anna and Naomi, where Anna actually ended up getting the best of the court and moving on to the finals once again. On the other side of things, you have Aryna Sabalenka just taking names. I think there was only a moment in her quarterfinals or in the last of her 16 where you could see that you could tell that she knew that she was good. You could see her confidence of like, I got this. I'm better than what I just threw. I'm going to be better than my next hit. And you can really see this in her training style. There's been a bunch of really fun new videos coming out of how she trains before a match and just some of the agility that she goes through. Now let's move on to the men's side. An American favorite, Ben Shelton, was out early in the round, and then we started focusing on some later round possibilities. We had Taylor Fritz go up against Djokovic. Another American favorite falls to the great Djokovic as he makes it into the semifinals against no other than Carlos Alcaraz. And what I love about this matchup is the way that they play, their creativeness isn't too far from each other. They're both heavy hitters, but of course the biggest story of this game, of this match, was the age. Carlos Alcaraz at 24, Djokovic at 38. You have to understand that there's gonna be some tolls on the older pro, and it showed. And he talked about it in his post-match interview, talking about, I'm going to go for as long as my body can take me. And I think it's so interesting because we see players age right in front of us, and we're like, there's no way, like he's the best. And then you see this young tyke, and their match went for hours and hours. Not his historic 5.5-hour match, but still a pretty long match to be able to keep your body able to be hitting like that for 3 hours is definitely taking a toll. And you could see it. There was nothing but love and respect at the end of the match. And then we head over on the other side. The last 7 majors, and this was not a story that was not well covered. It was talked into the ground. Sinner versus Alcaraz. Is it going to happen again? Right? We have these 2 young bucks, 24 years old, taking the majors by storm. The last 7 majors, right? What are those? That's in January, you have the Australian Open. You've got Paris, Roland Greece in the spring, Wimbledon at the summertime in London, and then you've got the US Open in New York at the end of summer. Absolutely beautiful. So for the last 2 years, these two guys have really been holding it down as far as finals in the majors, winning or playing up against each other. Now, this last matchup in Wimbledon, Sinner took home the win. What was going to happen this time? It's kind of been going almost like back and forth. I win one, you win one. I win one, you win one. Not exactly. But this finals was going to be different. It's going to be Alcaraz versus Sinner again. On a hard court, how are things going to look different? Alcaraz came out swinging, right? He started the tournament, shaved his head. He had this whole new look. He had this whole new vibe. He was after it. He was hungry. And one thing that I loved the most, if you haven't seen a finals, that's a finals to watch. It was so creative. And you actually got to see Sinner making some mistakes, which you don't really see very often. Now, I'm a Jannik fan. Sinner is definitely who I was rooting for. But it's hard to not feel a sense of happiness watching those two play against each other. It's hard to describe, especially when tennis is, so individual and yet has your crew and your team behind you talking to each other. I felt like that was a really big point of both the men and women's side. There was a lot of coaching communication throughout the rounds, and I love seeing that aspect of it. Do I think it's too much sometimes? Maybe. I'm not a tennis player. I'm just here to enjoy an amazing match, and that you get in full at the US Open. It wasn't just about winning the US Open. It was who's going to become the number one in tennis. Jannik had held this title for over a year, since last July, and he was on the cusp again. Can he hold on to it? Not if Carlos had anything to say about it. This match was so fun, and in the end, Carlos got the better of Sinner. He walked away with the championship at the US Open and with the world number one title. The relationship between Sinner and Alcaraz is so fun to see at the end of the match. Them hugging, smiling at each other, complimenting one another. Even Alcaraz had a really cute moment in his speech, which they do for both the men and women's final. They'll have the runner-up take their time, thank people, present them with their award, and then they'll have the finalist. Let them think, let them have a couple of questions. They'll have a little mini interview and present them with their trophies. It's honestly a really fun ceremony, I think, as far as ceremonies go, especially if you're looking at Wimbledon. You literally have a princess handing you your trophy. Oh my gosh, you are a princess. Shut up. Anyway, it's such a fun moment. And in Alcaraz's interview at the end of this final, turned to Sinner and said, "I see you more than my family." And how fun it's been to be able to play you throughout the year. And it's a camaraderie of everybody gets to win. Yes, you win more money or more prizes, but none of us are starving out here, right? Both of us have been very successful in the majors. We both have won, I think, 4 now of the last 2 years. It's just great to see that in sports, because I think oftentimes, you take American sports such as football. You're not really talking to the runner-up. They sulk off the sideline. They're crying. They've given all of their, blood, sweat, and tears, time away from their family, this, that, and the other. And it's so, I find the culture around it so refreshing. It's like a deep breath of being able to acknowledge that your opponent did an amazing job and you can be friends with them. And when the game is on, the game is on. And you're not talking, you're not joking around, but you're still able to be a good person in those moments. There's a really fun picture of Jannik holding an umbrella, the sunshade. I don't know if this was at Wimbledon. You get to see his personality of, hey, I'm still a good guy if I'm sitting on the bench and someone's trying to shade me. And he even went out to say, it's not even because she was a girl. I would have done the same thing if it was a guy. And you just get to see their personalities through it. And I really appreciate that culture around tennis. Now back to the women's final. We have Anna Anisimova trying to get, her final after the Wimbledon loss. Then you've got Aryna Sabalenka, who is the number one, going head to head. And it was quite a fun match to watch. Ending in a very close tiebreaker, Arena walked away with the championship once again. She's now held the title back to back. Where I found things to be really interesting, talking about the ceremonial aspects of things, is at the end of the women's match. The person who was interviewing them hasn't been part of the interviewing process at all up to this point. Now, after every win, the champion of that match will get interviewed and move on to the next round. Only in the finals do you then talk to the runner-up. And in this moment, you could tell that Anna Anisimova had a lot to say. She had lost again, but had a comeback. Not only about the person who she lost to before, but a comeback in ownership of who she is and her confidence and coming back after a 2-year break, going to college, finding art, losing her father, reconnecting with tennis. She had such an emotional ride, and it's been so pleasant to see her come back, play within the US, and have such a successful tournament. Did it end up in winning? No, it didn't. But I think she should still be so incredibly proud of herself on how well she did getting back to the final and playing against Arena. At the end of this, she's then kind of rushed. Okay, now let's present you with your, she's like, I'm not done yet. I haven't even thanked my team. And so she finishes up. They present her with her award. She walks up. Arena comes on. And the same thing happens. All right, let's present you with your check. And she literally said, hold on. I want to thank my team. And she's like, not to be rude. And I love this about both women being like, hold on. I have Arena also having lost her father. I've been through so much to get here. I've just played my heart out. Let me say my thank yous. And I just appreciated both of them being strong enough to speak up for themselves. And also like, who the Sam Heck was interviewing you who hasn't been here the whole time, it just seemed a little chaotic for as established as other major tournaments are, coming off Wimbledon, like I said, a literal princess. And now we're fumbling in, cutting people off. I love being an American. I love my country. But I was like, come on, be a sports journalist for half a second and let them talk. And I also felt like the questions weren't as good as they could have been. But nonetheless, it was still quite a fun tournament. Now, that's the last major of the year. There's some other tournaments that are happening that will be minor throughout the rest of the year. However, we will open back up in January in Australia, taking on the Australian Open, and I can't wait to see you guys back here for some more amazing tennis. Now, before we move on to football, because it is officially football season, and I'm so excited to talk you through the first week, we do have to end our WNBA and MLB seasons. So let's get into it. The WNBA. Oh my gosh, do I love the W. The WNBA was so fun this year. We've had new teams enter. The Valkyries made the playoffs for the first time, and being their inaugural year, I think that's the first time any team has not only become a team that same season, but has also made it to the playoffs. So way to go, Valkyries. It was kind of a touch and go spot for a minute because the Valkyries were in a heated matchup with the Storm and the Sparks. Who was going to make it, who wasn't? And it really went until the last game. The Sparks had to beat the Mercury, the Storm had to lose, then they had to win another game. It was absolutely chaotic up until the very last game of regular season. This is how the standings finalized. Lynx came in number 1. There was no real surprise there. They were clinched weeks ago. They were clearly going to make it to the playoffs. They were clearly going to have the number 1 position a month ago. There was no way in catching them. Moving on to the number 2 and number 3 spot. I was surprised at the beginning of the year that the Dream weren't in the top 5. They've slowly inched their way forward. I thought they were going to end in the number 2 spot, but the Aces had another thing to say about it. The Aces come in at number 2 with their own MVP, Aja Wilson, Collier in the Lynx, Dream coming in 3rd, Mercury coming in 4th with an MVP of themselves with Alyssa Thomas, Miss Triple-Double herself. You've got the New York Liberty, and really, who on that team couldn't be an MVP? You got the Fever coming in at number 6, going into the playoffs without Sophie Cunningham and without Caitlin Clark. Then you have the Storm rounding out number 7 and the Valkyrie coming in at number 8. It's going to be such a fun playoff. Now, this is how it works. Since there's only 8 teams in the playoffs, you basically come in at the quarterfinals. The quarterfinals will be played a best of 3 games. The Lynx will play the Valkyrie in Minnesota. The Aces will play the Storm in Vegas. The Dream will play the Fever in Atlanta. And the Merc will host the Liberty in Phoenix. Now, this is how the playoffs will work. Since you're coming in at the quarterfinals, the top 4 teams have home court advantage, and you'll do a 1-1-1 game. So you really have to win 2, best of 3. Then the top 4 teams will have home court advantage. Then moving into the next round, whoever has the higher advantage, yet again, will do a 2-2-1. 2 games at the first home, 2 at the away, and then back to home. This is how the playoffs are going to work for the WNBA. Because there's only 8 teams, you basically come into the quarterfinals. Now, the top 4 teams have already clinched their home court advantage for the first game. Now, the quarterfinals are going to be best of 3. So how it'll work was 1 game at home, 1 game away, and 1 game back at home for the higher seed team. Now, for the semifinals, it goes best of 5, 2-2-1. And now for the finals, best of 7, 2-2-1-1-1. Don't worry, I'll be here with you every step of the way to help explain it. Let's start off with the first round of games. This Sunday, the Lynx will be taking on the Valkyrie at home. Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern, you can watch that on ESPN. At 3 p.m. Eastern, Atlanta will be taking on the Fever in Atlanta. You can watch that on ABC. Then you'll have the Mercury hosting the New York Liberty at 5 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. And last but not least, you will have the Aces in Vegas versus the Storm at 10 p.m. Eastern on Sunday on ESPN. That'll be the first round of games. And that kind of leads us perfectly into football. Football, football, football. I am so excited for football season. Now, we didn't have an episode last week, so let's recap on a couple of things and how things went down. Cowboys versus the Eagles. Eagles coming out strong after winning the Super Bowl last year, and they didn't come to play. They put the Cowboys where they needed to be. I personally don't have a love for the Cowboys, but I like some of their players. I think they can do better. I'm excited to see if Dak Prescott gets better because I think he had 180 yards. Friday night, that was so fun. First of all, Friday night games, anytime that there is a game that's not on a Thursday, a Sunday, or a Monday, I'm like, ooh, spicy life. Let's switch it up. I just get so excited about it. Chargers take on the Chiefs. Holy freaking crap. Holy crap. This was such a fun game. Herbert took it to them. This man threw 25 out of 34 completions for 318 yards. If you had Herbert on your bench last year, you're not gonna this year. There's been some talk about how his relationship with Madison bears out and all this fun talk. And I think that these relationships you see, we talked last time about Josh Allen getting married to Haley Steinfeld, Travis Kelce and Taylor getting engaged. I just think there's something so wholesome about football players having this consistency in their life. And I think a bit of feminine energy, if I'm being honest. They have such masculine jobs that require them to be so tough and so physical that I love seeing these guys get not soft in their heart, but it like makes their game better somehow. I don't know if that makes any sense or if I'm making something up, but I'm here for it. Okay, I'm here for it. I don't know if Herbert's relationship is what's making him better, if he had an amazing offseason. We also had the Chiefs wide receiver Brown coming in at 99 yards and 10 receiving passes. Like, what? That's wild. It was definitely a fun game. I think even though the Chiefs didn't win the Super Bowl, that to me was a heck of an opener to the season. Not as good as some other games that we'll get into. Don't you worry. We move on to the Broncos versus the Falcons in Atlanta. The Bucs come away with a win. Bengals versus Browns. I was happy to see this conference matchup, partially because I'm a Steelers fan, so being able to see how the teams are going to match up against each other was really fun for me. Also, had no idea Joe Flacco was still playing. Like, get out of division, Joe. Get out of here. Freaking great game, dude, with 1 touchdown, 290 yards, 31 completed passes. I was like, man, I'm really tired of hearing Joe Flacco. Not gonna lie. Not gonna lie. I'm like, heave ho. Well, that was a fun game. Only winning by 1 point, 17-16, the Bengals win. Heading over into Indiana, the Colts give the Dolphins an absolute ass whooping. I'm sorry, there's no other words for it. 33-8. 33-8. Jones threw for 22 passes, 272 yards, and 1 touchdown. Can you imagine? Like, I would have expected his stats to be off the charts as a quarterback, to be winning 33-8. And I think what we can get from that is the Colts defense is really good. I didn't watch the game. I can't watch every game, but I will tell you what games I'm going to watch this upcoming week so you can meet me on social media and interact with me live. Moving on, the Raiders take it to the Patriots 20-13. The Cardinals beat the Saints down in Louisiana. I think they're going to be a secret weapon this year. Not only because their rivalry jerseys are probably the best rivalry jerseys, and I am still a woman of fashion, and I think if you dress nice, you're gonna do well. So I'm gonna take the Cardinals as a secret weapon this year. Now to my favorite game, we've got some behind the scene footage of the game of Jets versus the Steelers in New Jersey. So go ahead and head over to our social media. You can check out some really fun game day activities there. I was worried about Aaron Rodgers, and not gonna lie, the fact that this game even happened the way that it did, trading Aaron for Justin Fields, Watt having an amazing tackle, an amazing sack of Justin. It was funny to see, like, he knew our team knew him, but it was also, I'm not a huge Aaron Rodgers fan, and I'm really hoping that this season changes my mind, but I do have respect for the fact that this team traded you away. They basically called you old and useless, and you're like, yeah, well, I just beat you. In the second highest scoring game of the weekend, winning by 2 points, 34-32. Steelers undefeated so far. Hoot hoot. Moving on to the Giants heading over to Washington, D.C., where the Commanders come out on top 21-6. Now to 2 teams that I think this was a snooze game, the Panthers versus the Jaguars. The Jaguars won 26-10. They won 26-10, and Trevor Lawrence only threw for 178 yards with only 19 passes. Then we had the Broncos at home versus Tennessee, taking it to him 20-12. Bo Nix. Mr. Bo Nix. I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see how he excels. I don't know that I would say that the Broncos are a secret weapon this year, but I do think Bo Nix could be a potential secret weapon. Him matched up with Harvey for 6 carries and 70 yards and Sutton for 61 yards and 1 touchdown. I think that could be fun. I think that could be fun to watch. We had the 49ers in Seattle winning by 17-3. Brock Purdy, of course, doing his thing. McCarthy, 22 carries, 69 yards. Then we had the Lions at the Packers. Go, Pack, go. I was actually really excited to see this, and I thought that the Lions were going to have more of a fight than they did. It was interesting to see how dominant the Packers were. Not to say that I wasn't assuming them to be. I just thought the Lions were going to come out harder. Really great game. Goff had an amazing game. Jacobs had a good game. Laporta had a good game. Porta had a really good game as a tight end for 79 yards and 6 receiving. Special positions. That team sneaky. Rams beat the Texans in a very low scoring 14-9. Nobody even scored in the fourth quarter. Stafford had a decent game. Now for the game that I was really excited about. And I mean really, really excited. Bills-Ravens. Now I am a Steelers fan, but I do respect the Ravens. And I respect how good they've been getting. They've made a lot of moves this offseason defensively. Their offense is stacked. They've got an amazing quarterback in Lamar. But I'm also escaping my Steelers trauma from this season into the Bills. I've become such a good fan of Josh Allen. And to see these two teams go head-to-head, I really didn't have a favorite. I was just excited to watch some good football. Regardless of how it affects my team and regardless of what happens, I still think that these two teams could be playing off in the AFC Championship this year. That's what I'm calling it. I'm calling it right now. So if it happens, you said I heard it here first from Taya at Let's Talk Sports. And I was like, oh, you're making me blush. Rounding out the week on Monday, we had the Vikings versus the Bears in Chicago, and the Vikings took the win. Now, how I want to play the rest of the NFL season. I'm going to tell you what next week's games are going to look at. I'm going to let you know what 3 games I'm going to be watching because I just can't watch them all, you guys. I'll watch highlights and I'll bring you the best news out of the season. But let's get into what this next week looks like. Week 2 of the NFL. I'm going to bring you the highlights to the best of my abilities, but I'm going to tell you who I'm picking to win this week. And I'm going to be telling you what 3 games I am going to be watching so you can catch me over on our social media and interact with me live. Packers versus Commanders. I'm going Packers. It's at home. The Cheeseheads, they have an energy. So I'm going Packers. Bengals versus the Jags in Cincy. I'm going Bengals. We've got the Giants versus the Cowboys in Dallas. I'm going Giants. I don't know. I feel like this game could be a bit of a toss-up, but I'm going to stick with my guts and I'm going to go Giants. Lions versus Bears. Oh my. In Detroit, I'm going to pick the Lions. Rams at Tennessee. I'm going to go for the Rams. Patriots in Miami. Now, I really want to see the Dolphins come back. I think that them being at home, and I honestly think that Mike McDaniels is a good coach, and I want to see him do something more than what we saw in the first week. So I'm going to say the Dolphins. We've got the 49ers down in Louisiana. I think it's going to be a 2-0 start for the Saints at home this year. I know, I hate to say it, but I think the 49ers are going to take it to them. We got the Bills versus the Jets, and I'm going the Bills. Steelers versus Seahawks at Three Rivers, at Acrisure, or as my favorite, at Heinz Field. We will see the Steelers beat the Seahawks. That is a game I will be watching. Then we've got the Browns versus Ravens. I'm actually really excited to see this conference battle, and I think that the Browns are going to lose. We got the Broncos in Indiana, and I think the Broncos are going to win. Horse versus horseshoe. The battle. The battle of the wild, wild west out in Indiana. Then we've got the Panthers in Arizona versus the Cardinals. I'm going Cardinals. We've got the Eagles at the Chiefs. Not only this past Super Bowl rematch, but 3 Super Bowls rematch. The first time in the Super Bowl, the Chiefs won. Second time, the Eagles won. And now this game, I feel like it could be a really easy toss-up, but I'm still going to go Eagles. But I think that's another game I will be watching. Falcons versus the Vikings. In Minnesota, I'm going to go Vikings. Bucks at the Texans on Monday. And Chargers in Las Vegas. I'm going Chargers after this last week. And I guess, I don't know, Bucks, Texans. I'm going to go Texans just because it's at home. Those are my matchups. Monday night, I will be watching the Chargers versus Raiders, so don't miss a thing on our social media. And then, obviously, Sunday night, I will be watching Eagles, Chiefs, and I will be watching the Steelers, Seahawks game. Last but not least, the MLB. Their postseason starts at the end of this month, and we will have all the coverage for you. Starting next week, we will take you through how the positioning's playing out, what the postseason playoffs look like. You aren't going to want to miss a thing. We'll also be going over my predictions from the NFL week number 2, who won, who lost, and all of the amazing highlights. Now, don't worry, we will still be getting into the WNBA. It will be such a fun episode. So come back, set your reminder, set your schedule next Saturday right here on Let's Talk Sports. Can't wait to kick it with you guys next week. I'm your host, Taya. Thanks for joining me for another amazing episode of Let's Talk Sports.